Sounds vicious.
Yeah.
Sounds frightening.
I'll send it to you.
Talk into the microphone.
I'm talking directly into the microphone.
Christmas, 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 Christmas. Welcome to Probably Irrelevant.
Possibly interesting.
With Mark and Wade. I am still Wade, and I think he's Mark. Christmas! What else is there to say? You can tell we have the hats.
Yeah, we got hats on.
They're festive.
They're Christmassy.
They are. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Feeling great.
I'm feeling pretty damn good myself, sir. Pretty good
Good.
myself. So we did a hell of a preamble before this. We talked about lots of different things, including violence, but I don't want to talk about that anymore.
That just gets the motor revved up.
It
Gets
does.
it warm.
Just a pro note. It turns out if you ever get in a fight, shoving your thumb in somebody's eye will make them let go of you real quick, according to Mark Alexander over here. Also ripping their ear off.
Trying to.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the happiest season of the year, allegedly, for many people. The time of year where gratitude is expressed and commercialism is encouraged, and we all sit around a Yule log and sing carols by the fire, which I think might also be, I've never been entirely clear what a Yule log is.
They have a lot of Yule things.
Well, I think a Yule log is a special log you put in the fire that smells Christmassy. That's the way I imagine it anyway.
During Yule time.
Yeah, the Yuletide, which is how you say it. Okay.
Probably.
So, what do you want for Christmas, Mark?
I mean, if I could get myself something for Christmas.
You're supposed to say peace on earth, goodwill toward men.
Well, I mean, I want something realistic.
You don't think that's possible?
No.
Okay. I tend to agree with you, considering
It'd be great if it was.
The world we're living in right now.
Be great if it was.
Yeah, if you get yourself something. If Santa Claus was coming to see, if you were still in the Santa Claus age.
Oh, if I was still in the age?
Yeah. Well, no. You're who you are now.
Oh.
But if Santa still came and visited you, and you were a very good boy this year.
Well, how preposterous can I make it?
Preposterous as
I don't
you
want to
want
make it too preposterous. That's kind of stupid. Like, I don't want to say like a car or a swimming pool.
So a car or swimming pool are your definitions of preposterous.
Yeah. I mean, how's Santa going to fit a car down the chimney?
I would say preposterous to me would be like the power of flight. Something impossible. I don't know. You see all these car commercials with these damn bows on the car. Number one, have you ever been to a store where they had the bow for the car?
If I bought like a $120,000 Lexus, they better put a damn bow on it. If it was a gift for my wife, I'd say, no. Put that big red bow
I wonder
on
if this
there.
is true for you, too. I would assume it is. But if, like, you see the commercial and the spouse, I think sometimes it's the guy, sometimes it's the girl, or whatever the situation may be, walks outside on Christmas, and there's a Lexus, as you said, with a big bow on it. And she's just like overjoyed with the generosity. Do you know what my wife would do to me if she saw a Lexus in the driveway? She would kill me.
She'd probably think you robbed a bank.
Well, it would mean, Jenny, here's $1,000 a month car payment for the next 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's what any sane person would be like, where the hell did you get this? Do you know how much debt we're going to have to go into for this thing?
That's right.
Take this thing back right now.
That's what would really happen.
My wife would say, I don't need this. Take this back right now. We can get 2 cars for the price of this.
Right.
But you're assuming, hey, they're upper income. They're out. We can't think like those
But
people
even
in
in
the car
that
commercial.
instance, even that if there was enough money where you have go buy a Lexus money, right? Just go buy one. She'd still get mad because that money could be used for something more productive.
Well, I mean, hypothetically, if you had that much money, that would just
You're
be
not the kind of guy who's going
no,
out
that
and
would just be
buying
a
random
great
Lexi. Is it
personal.
plural of Lexus, Lexi?
I don't know, Lexuses. If that was something that you have and that's a personal failing, that you're so rich but you think there's other things you could do with your money, I think, you got enough time to work on that.
That's true. That's fair.
I think I would want something like nostalgic. I've been. I was going to buy the vintage Hero Quest game and play with my kids.
You've been talking a lot about Hero Quest.
Well, I saw this thing about it. I think I would like that old Hero Quest game, and I could play with my kids. That'd be something fun. And that's for something attainable and not too. I mean, I could just buy it for myself right now.
You could right now. Yeah, I was going to say, if you want so there's a new edition of Hero Quest that you want, or do you want the old one?
I think I want the old one like I had when I was a kid.
I think you can probably make that happen fairly easily.
Yeah, probably $50-$60 on eBay.
Yeah.
I'm a realistic kind of guy. I mean, what would you want for Christmas?
I don't know. I never know what I want for Christmas.
I don't ever want anything.
I don't either. Like, I mean, and that sounds like I wish I did want something. Does that make sense? Like, I wish I was like, oh, I'm so excited about this thing that I want it. And I don't, there's nothing.
Well, I mean, I don't buy myself a lot of frivolous crap necessarily. Like that Hero Quest game, I would say would be frivolous. My wife and I exist in our marriage where we don't get each other a lot of stuff. Now I am getting her something this year, but
well, don't tell me because you listen to the show. And I'm getting my wife something as well, and I'm not going to say because maybe one day she'll listen to the show. But what I find is the older I get, it's less things I want and things I want to do.
Such as?
Okay, like cooking. Like, and I guess this is a material thing because food is an object. But I get like down these rabbit holes of wanting things like honest to goodness guanciale or like honest to goodness Parmesan from like the Parmesan region, like these things you see, and the only way that you can experience them is to get them from the actual source, like in terms of food and.
So you want to take a vacation?
Well, not exactly. I mean, I do. I'd love to go to Italy, but more like I want to make the stuff they make over there.
Okay.
But the only way to do that is with the stuff they have over there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's where I go. Or like
I think Parmesan Reggiano you can only make there.
You can, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's like champagne.
Or Pecorino Romano. Like
right.
And I like Pecorino better than Parmesan, actually. That sheep's good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite cheese?
Probably provolone.
Pecorino.
Okay.
Or, some sort of like extreme Stilton. Like dude, the more it smells like a foot and tastes like a foot, the more I like it.
I can't eat that stuff. My dad likes it. Like stink stuff.
Oh yeah. Like I would love to try a Limburger. Love to. I mean, my understanding is
I think you have to eat it outside.
Yeah, exactly. My understanding is that it really does smell like death itself, but it tastes amazing. I can get behind that. The only thing I couldn't really do, like, and cheese is a big thing for me. I'm a big fan of the cheese, but like, I couldn't be as extreme as like Kazu Marzu.
I don't know what that is.
That's well, what they do is they get some cheese. I'm not sure if it's like destined to be Parmesan or something like that, but wheel of cheese, and they introduce very specific kind of fly larva into it. And
so they're just
wait for it to putrefy.
Okay.
And then you eat it, and when you eat it, the bugs start jumping out of it. And if the bugs aren't jumping out of it, it's bad because they've all died. And so you eat it with the live larvae in the cheese. So I couldn't do that. Like, even talking about it is making my stomach hurt a little bit. That's a real thing. It's a delicacy. Kazu Marzu.
In what country?
Italy.
Shit, remind me never to do that. That's foul. Somebody just made that up.
It's a real thing. It is a 100% real thing. It's a real thing. And here, and apparently the larvae give it a nutty flavor.
But don't all bugs taste like? That's what they say. All bugs taste like.
That reminds me. So this is one of the stupid things I get excited about.
Bugs.
A little bit. We're getting there. So our children are both in Boy Scouts. They're in there together. And they have an upcoming Dirty Santa thing.
Yeah.
Right? And they have to give either a serious or hilarious camping gift. What camping gift is your son bringing to the Dirty Santa thing?
I don't know, but it'll be serious.
Well, mine. So, number one, for one of them, they're going to be offering some dehydrated water, which is by request. and it's a can of water, or it's a can that says dehydrated water, just add water, which one of my children thinks is the funniest thing they've ever seen, which tells you everything you need to know about that child. And then the other one, it's going to be a bag of barbecue-flavored assorted insects.
See, I just wouldn't pay for any of that.
Well, I think it cost me a grand total of like $11 for both of them.
I wouldn't pay $1 for it.
Have you ever eaten bugs?
No.
Never even because for 1 year my kid wanted a bag of crickets, and there were sour cream and onion flavor, and we ate the crickets. They weren't bad. Wasn't bad at all. Kind of had a pork rindy kind of quality to them.
I just don't. I've never had the occasion. If somebody brought some, was like, "Hey, man, eat this," I'd probably be like, "All right." But I don't have the occasion to eat bugs, really.
Can we pause for just a second?
Sure, we can.
Okay. So, what were we talking about? Christmas. It's a great time of year.
You're going to have to edit it. I don't know.
I know. I'm excited about it.
You're talking about eating that bug cheese.
Eating that? Well, yeah. I was talking about getting the. So yeah, for the Dirty Santa, they're bringing dehydrated water.
Now wait a minute.
And crickets.
I could be wrong, but don't we have the Christmas thing for the kids?
That's Monday. Is the Dirty Santa thing? I thought.
And I think Monday is the.
I should look at the Remind app.
I think Monday is the Christmas singing performance. The
Monday,
kids,
December 18th, Scout Room. Theme, the great indoors. What to bring? Each scout needs to bring their campout chair. Each scout, including adult leaders, are responsible for bringing a $20 or less camping-themed gift to play Dirty Santa in quotation marks for some reason. The gift can be a serious camping item or a ridiculous camping item. If you do not bring a gift, you cannot participate. Nothing in there says anything about singing a song.
I think our kids who go to the same school have their Christmas performance is Monday night.
Your kids have their Christmas performance.
Oh.
Mine are in middle school, and they don't do that anymore.
Oh.
And that just occurred to me, and I feel better than I did a few minutes ago.
Yeah. So I have to go with my kid, Marky.
So Mark's not going to participate.
Yeah,
because he's got to be a shepherd or something.
Yeah, he's got to be something. He has some part in it.
So, you and I both grew up going to church. And typically at churches, there's some kind of nativity pageant, right?
Not really, not for us.
Well, were you ever? Because I was always a shepherd. Anytime I've never been anything but a shepherd in any participation I've had. And the shepherds are definitely for the nativity scene where I was going to church. The also rans, right? Like this is the spear holder of the nativity scene.
Well, I think that'd be a shepherd's crook.
Well, you know what I mean. In Shakespeare play, your spear.
Oh yeah.
Or spear carrier. Excuse me.
Well, at least you weren't a sheep.
I don't think we had just like, in my recollection, just sort of
cotton ball sheep.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. No, we didn't have a nativity play. I think we just read from the Gospel of Matthew about the birth of Christ.
I remember once I was dating a girl who was very religious, and she was helping out with her local church's nativity play. And in order to show my value, I was helping her make the costumes, one of which was like a Roman soldier's costume. So got an old football helmet and painted it gold, and I don't remember what we did, put a brush on top of it or something. And so, of course, like a, good guy dating a girl, went to the nativity thing with her. It was the craziest damn thing I've ever seen in my life.
Also to say, is there a lot of Romans in the nativity play?
Well, there are in the part where they, in this version, they enthusiastically beat the crap out of a skinny little guy in front of the entire congregation.
Are you sure that's not the Passion play?
Well, that's true. It was the nativity. It was the Passion, but it was at Christmas
Close
time.
enough.
Sorry, man.
The beginning and ending of Jesus' life.
I apologize. This was not the nativity. I think they did it though in this particular production. Is they did do the nativity first, but they kind of did all the stages of.
So that
Jesus'
was like kind of
life.
like the life of Christ on the stage.
That's exactly right. And there was a skinny kid who was, Jesus, and these guys who were I mean, aggressively, like taking a little too much enjoyment out of their role, and
I guess they were well casted.
I guess so. I just remember like everybody else being moved by it and me feeling very uncomfortable during the whole situation. Like, that guy all right?
When I got older, we went to midnight mass.
Yep.
So, I mean, I wasn't that old, but it was when you're old enough to sit still and can stay up late, That's what we always did.
The Methodist / Baptist didn't do anything at midnight.
There's a lot of Methodists and Baptists used to go to the midnight mass. People
at the Catholic Church?
Yeah, a lot of people would show up there.
It was like a curiosity?
I think so. I don't know what else do they come for?
Go watch the Papists.
See what we're up to. See what we're up to. It's pretty different from a Baptist church.
It's very different.
Not as different from Methodist church, although it can be, but
yeah, Methodist is very close to Episcopalianism. In my experience, going to an Episcopal church, it was pretty familiar. Put it that way.
I saw this
bigger like we're into grape juice, not wine at the Methodist church. The Episcopals do drink the wine.
I think there's a disagreement, and I don't think it's 100% across the board across Anglican churches and Episcopal churches that. I think some believe in transubstantiation and some don't. Episcopals and Anglicans.
I see. That's interesting because I believe one of the biggest things that caused extreme strife in the late in the 1500s and 1600s, like when the Anglican Church became a thing under Henry VIII, was the question of transubstantiation, and if you were a transubstantiist, you were firmly on the Catholic side, and if you weren't, you were on the Anglican side. I think that is a line in the ground, and unless I'm very wrong, Episcopalianism is.
I don't think so.
Is Anglicanism.
I think there are some Episcopal churches and Anglican churches that do believe in it. Lutherans believe it too. Actually, I think Lutheranism believes in transubstantiation.
Well, Lutheran's a different kind of Protestant, though. I don't know that that's right, Mark. I think that most Protestants reject transubstantiation.
I'm not sure that's right.
I thought it was a specifically Catholic job, but I could be completely wrong.
I think that.
I mean, we do have these devices that could tell us right now, but where's the fun in that?
I think the major division is that. I'm not exactly sure, but the Catholics believe in the dominance of the church being founded by Jesus.
100%.
And that
intercessionism is also a big difference between Catholicism and most Protestant religion. Well, I don't know of any Protestant faith or mainline Protestant faith that has anything like intercession.
They don't. But that there's, I think Lutherans, like Methodists, if you got baptized, you got probably baptized when you were a child.
A baby, yeah.
A baby. So, like, all Baptists don't believe in that.
It's 100% true.
They don't. They don't believe in baptism until you're able to accept Christ.
And I think there's that's a reasonable position to take.
Well, I mean, but just like you, when you went to Methodist church, the Episcopalian church, Anglican church, Catholic church, you have an intermediate sacrament. That's called a sacrament.
Yep.
You have an intermediate sacrament called confirmation, where, they baptize babies because you're baptized in water and the Holy Spirit, which, saves you. And then you basically, when you're of the age to say, I want to keep doing this, you have confirmation.
Yeah.
And Baptists, and really Baptists, and then everybody else, that would be like Pentecostals, and, they don't do it until you're older, till you can make a decision.
Yeah.
Usually when you're a teenager, but I really think that there are. I think there are Anglicans and Episcopalians that do believe in transubstantiation. And I think Lutherans do too.
Well, the reason I'm pushing back against that is like a big difference between like the Baptist church and like the Anglican church or the Episcopalian church, which I think are the same thing, is that they are like Catholic Church, top down. Like there is a, like if you want to know what the rules are to being a Catholic, right? You can look those up, and they are specific and consistent across whatever.
They're not. It's not rules necessarily. It's the interpretation of the Bible.
Yes, but there are people who do that for you, is what I'm saying.
Right.
As opposed to a Baptist church, which is there's sort of a loose set of those, right? But each individual congregation determines what it is they're
Believing.
Yeah.
Other than very.
There's broad strokes, but
other than the biggest things. I mean,
yeah, I mean, none of them are like, none of them don't believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ, for instance.
Well, see, and I kind of have like for people, I don't know, I need to like talk to more Protestants that are Baptist and further along that Calvinist string of, because a lot of it. But
you see, the Baptist Church is in some ways a Protestant rejection of Calvinism, because Calvinism is fundamental. God, it's.
I think the Baptists are Calvinists.
No, because there's no predestination in the Baptist Church.
That's Presbyterians.
That's right. That's what I'm thinking of. But Calvinism is like itself. John Calvin himself was all about predestination.
But I think they believe
there's a list. We know it, and if you're not on that list, sorry about your luck, man.
He has 5 things, and one of them is saved by grace, predestination, some other things. He has like 5 things that he wrote down, and I think they have 4 out of the 5. The 5th one is predestination, which they don't believe. But like one of the things, or 2 of the things, like when you get baptized, if you get baptized in the Baptist church, if you get baptized in a Pentecostal church or the Catholic church, they're going to baptize you in the name of the Father, and the name of the Son, and the name of the Holy Spirit. It doesn't matter.
That's true.
They're going to baptize you. Well, why do they baptize you that way?
Because of the Council of Nicaea and deciding that the Trinity was a thing?
You're right.
Yeah. Thanks, Constantine.
Right. So, there was a lot of arguments in the early church that, and I really need like a theologian that would be a Protestant theologian to talk about it, but there's a lot of things that are accepted as fact among all Christians that if you don't believe it, you don't believe in Christianity, such as the Godhead, the God in 3 persons.
I don't know, there's such a thing as Gnostic Christians, and they don't believe in
but they're really not. I mean, that's like the top of the thing is that it's God in 3 persons. If you don't believe that in basically that Nicene Creed, that there's a God and He's the God that knows everything, and He had a Son that's also God, and He had a Holy Spirit, and here's the Holy Spirit. But they had to decide that. They
did. In fact, that there are a lot. It's kind of fascinating reading about very, very early church where they're making these decisions, and one fundamental one that caused a couple of extreme conflicts, especially in the Constantinople part of the Roman Empire, was the question as to whether or not Jesus himself was divine or not, whether he was made of the same substance. There's a word for it that I can't remember, but whatever the substance of God the Father is, was he that or not?
Yeah, they say consubstantial with the Father.
Is that the word?
Yeah, they used to. The old Nicene Creed was one in being with the Father. Now they say consubstantial. Means he is God. That's why you have God in 3 persons. It's the divine mystery. Even those ancient church fathers, the Catholic church fathers, basically grappled with that and said, okay, we have this because the Jewish Messiah was not a God. He wasn't God. He
was supposed to just save the Jewish people.
He was supposed to be I
don't mean just save the Jews, but he was lead and save the Jewish people. He was
supposed to be the final king of Israel there was also some, and I've only read about it really not very much, but that it would be kind of would set the world at peace, and there would be no strife, and that it would be the kind of everything would come back into harmony. it was an actual Messiah, it would be like the final king of the Israelites.
I'm not even sure I know what the word Messiah means. That just occurred to me.
It's a Hebrew word that means whatever I just described. The final
But
king.
it means the last king of the Jews.
The final king of Israel that would come and set this messianic age, which would be that all people would be at peace and that you would have no fighting, no any of that stuff.
Right.
So they grappled with, well, what was Jesus? Was he also divine? Was he God? What was he? And then you have, I've sent someone to help you. Well, who is it? It's this, my spirit, the Holy Spirit that's come to help you because I'm not going to be here anymore. So then they've got to decide, what is that? My point in saying that is, the rejection of all these things. I mean, obviously I don't take it personally, but
well, thank you for not taking it personally.
I'm just saying there's nowhere in the Bible where
people who have taken it personally have caused a lot of issues over the years.
There's a lot of people that still take it very personally.
I know.
But that you have this God in three persons thing that was really discussed over hundreds of years, actually.
Yeah.
To decide how we should treat Jesus.
And it wasn't a set, and there's some very early Christian saints who weren't decided on that one way or another. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't, you think about like really early, and nobody had made this, again, a group of people hadn't gotten together and said, okay, here's what's going on, guys.
What should we do?
It's one, and by the way, 1 in 3 sounds like just, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but it does sound like a bunch of lawyers got in a room and said, okay, here's the best compromise we can come up with. Right? Because there had to be somebody who was like this, who was like, all right, I'm cool with God and Jesus,
but what
being
about
God.
the Holy Spirit?
But what is this Holy Ghost thing?
I'm sure there is. But there's a lot of delineations that go on, even charismatic, that's what I was trying to think of, where people, if you remember, like in the Acts of the Apostles, where the Holy Spirit descends on them like tongues of fire when they're in the upper room. And they go out and they can speak in tongues and they can do all this, these, and there's all the signs of the Holy Spirit. You can interpret signs, prophecy, speaking in tongues. And there's several of them. I mean, there's people that will believe that certain miracles can take place and some can't. Some that speaking in tongues is okay, but other miracles. I mean, Peter raised somebody from the dead in the Bible.
And there are several saints who've done the same thing.
So,
Saint Nicholas himself. Like St. Nicholas, that guy, famously raised 3 children from the dead. They were in a pickle jar or a pickle barrel.
So I don't know, how fine you slice that. It just
I think
gets
this is where all the
ridiculous.
conflict comes from, because I think it's so, especially when you dive down into it, I think it's fascinating. I like religion as a subject. I think it's deeply interesting. And the more you learn about it, especially if you try to take it as like, especially if you come at it from a standpoint of, I just want to learn what this is and what the history is without it being a personal thing. If you can do that, which you can do with anything other than your own religion, right? Then the more I think you have to be sympathetic of, well, it's fine if anybody believes whatever they want to believe in. And really getting upset and really wanting to either force someone to conform to whatever you've decided is the correct answer, or eliminate all remnants of another. I mean, we've historically seen what that leads to, which is a lot of people getting killed.
You mean because they believed something they weren't supposed to?
The classic example, like the easiest one to grasp for me, is again like that period before Elizabeth became the Queen of England, and you've got Lady Jane Grey, who I don't think ever actually became the Queen of England, but Lady Jane Grey, who was a Protestant, she burned Catholics up. Then Mary, Bloody Mary, who burned up, Lady Jane Grey burned up Catholics, and Mary burned up Protestants. And it was because of things like someone printing a Bible in English or someone believing in transubstantiation. And then Elizabeth comes in, and she was obviously a Protestant, and she certainly did burn a few people, but it wasn't extreme. There was kind of this sense of like, just, don't be loud about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And allowing people, and what we've learned, I think, in fact, I believe strongly that history was so recent in the minds of the people who founded this country, is that's why that weird First Amendment is in there, is they saw, if you start parsing this thing down into whether you believe that this bread is literally turning into the flesh of God or not, things that cannot be proven in any material kind of way, then you're just creating a situation where chaos and theocracy is going to reign, and that's not what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I just think they wanted to avoid a lot of problems.
Well, that's one way to do it.
I mean, now I think if you don't believe something, you just go make your own church. That's what people do now.
Oh, yeah, totally. Dude, if I was a lot more cynical and younger, that was 100% what I'd do.
Like L. Ron Hubbard.
1,000,000%. I mean, it seems kind of brilliant.
Kind of in a diabolical way.
No, 100% in a diabolical way. But there's cults all over America. And here's the thing, a psychological truth about people is you don't need like 1 billion followers. You don't need 1 million followers. You don't even need 1,000 followers. You get 50 or 60 people, buddy, you got yourself a religion.
I think
you want to start a religion?
No, I really don't. I got enough problems.
My favorite thing about cults is every single one of them uniformly eventually end up being about, so now I'm going to have to sleep with your wife.
Or money. Or give us all your money.
Yeah.
Sign over this deed to your house.
But God has come and told me that I'm just going to have to sleep with your wife.
They seem to sort out that way.
They do.
Well, back to Christmas. I was reading this. I was reading in the because we talked about it one time about the kind of the pagan tradition of Christmas.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it in there.
And so I was reading about all these Christmas songs that we sing.
Give me an example.
Well, like "Deck the Halls."
Deck the halls with boughs of holly. I'm just trying to remember the words. Fa la 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 la.
Yeah.
La 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 la.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
'Tis the season to be jolly. But then the next one is "Don we now our gay apparel," but that was not what it originally. That's not what it originally was. It was something like "Get the cup and drink the something." It was about drinking.
Oh, okay.
That was about drinking.
So you're talking about like some traditional song that was sort of weakened by the Victorians then.
Well, I mean, we sing that as a Christmas song, but what is the connection in "Deck the Halls" to Christmas as we know
like
it
a
now?
religious association?
Even the secular.
There's not one.
The secular connotation of Christmas now, other than decorating.
Deck the halls, boughs of holly. 'Tis season to be. Well, I guess the season. Okay.
And that was in the original. I think it was Welsh lyrics.
The ancient Yuletide carol.
The ancient Yuletide
it's
carol.
It's the ancient Yuletide carol.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, cool.
The ancient Yuletide carol. And all that stuff that's in there, there's a lot of, it was about drinking and putting the Yule log on and celebrating Yule, which was the winter festival of Yule.
The Yule festival, the Yuletide was a Scandinavian, Germanic,
pagan winter.
Definitely
winter
pagan
ritual.
In fact, Odin, right? One of his names is Yule Father, like the All Father and the Yule Father.
So I was reading, and it was a guy. I don't know if it wasn't Harold, but it was somebody. I just remember his half brother's last name was, I can't remember his first name, it was like Carl or something, but his nickname was Blood Axe.
Yeah. Eric the First Blood Axe is my favorite Viking king name.
But
that's a real guy, by the way. I mean, he's dead, but there was a guy.
I think he was not the first king of Norway, but he was the first Christian king of Norway that brought Christianity to the Norwegians. And
but it's all. But see, that's the interesting thing about it. In that time in history, 100% fascinates me, because you have these maniacs living up there, and part of their, like, the season is, you've got your harvest time and you've got your sowing time, and like just about every agrarian society. Yeah, they certainly had that, but they also had the time where they went and harvested, Scotland. And so try to imagine, it's like, I guess Viking age would be like, what, like 500 to like 900?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And you are a priest who's been tasked with the job of going into these forests in Germany and the forests of Scandinavia by yourself and convincing these people that this is the correct theology, right? You don't go in there and say, hey, everything you believe in and like is wrong and stupid. You go in there and be like, hey, guys, how's it going? Yeah, this is cool. So actually, this evergreen tree that you're decorating, really what it is it's a symbol of that's it. That's what take it. A symbol of everlasting life that you'll get through this thing that I'm selling. No, keep doing that. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. But that's what that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think even when I was reading that about that king, I think he had to go because his half brother, he was.
At that time, religion was all about building political alliances. His brother, too.
He was sent from Norway to go to England as a child, and he was raised it was Northumbria, the kingdom of Northumbria, which is the kind of North England and South Scotland. And when he became of age, he was sent back to Norway, and he became the king of Norway. But his half-brother, I think, became the king of Northumbria.
Yeah.
So he kind of went there and was like, hey, he had converted to Christianity, but he kind of did what you said, like, all right, I've got this whole country. You keep doing your Yuletide things, but also, hey, guys, let me tell you about Jesus. And he kind of did it on the sly until he had to go back to Northumbria and fight his half-brother or blood axe. And then when he came back, he was like, see, I won. Jesus is cool.
That's right. I mean, famously Charlemagne, right? Like the founder of whatever the hell.
But they believed him.
Totally. So what Charlemagne did, and Charlemagne was running around 800, right? And always a problem with specifically the northern Germans, or what we would call Germany today. It was, then it was just a gazillion tribes living out in the woods. And I mean, like the woods forever. There was this very, very old tree that, according to the religion of the people, held up the world. That the sky was held up by this tree. And Charlemagne goes in, he defeats them in some battle, and then he burns the tree down. And that's what converted because it was exactly what you said, is this team won. In fact, it's a fascinating thing about, Christianity, which is I mean, absolutely a religion on paper of peace, is that the only reason that it became, and you can say it was divine intervention or you can say it was an accident, I don't know, but it's because of Constantine. And Constantine won a battle over a bridge, not even a very important battle, by supposedly painting the Chi and the Rho on the shield of all his soldiers because he saw a symbol in the sky. I think he saw a cross in the sun, maybe
something like that.
And before that, Christianity was a popular religion, but the Rome itself as a state thought it undermined itself because a part of the pantheon beyond Jupiter and everything was the deification of people like people who lived, right? Like you could go back then to the Senate and say, you know what, Mark was a hell of a guy. In fact, he is a hell of a guy. I think we should deify him.
Sure.
And that means that you would become, usually it was after you're dead, but it could happen when you were alive. You could become a god, which meant that people had to
through my actions on earth, whatever.
That's
I could
correct.
my heroic actions.
That's absolutely
like
correct.
Hercules.
In fact, you could make an argument that an extension of what sainthood became is kind of that. But it was the fact that like it had been since time immemorial that this one god kicked this other god's ass, right? Because that's the determining factor. I find that endlessly fascinating. Like what if what if he'd have lost that fight? Why did he choose that particular fight for this to be? It could have been a situation where it was totally up in the air. It could have been a thing where Constantine figured out that, okay, this is a much more this can be a much more authoritarian religion if I do it the right way.
But didn't the Romans believe that the Caesar was like Jupiter?
No, the Caesar was, and it changes throughout it. But there was an office called Pontifex Maximus, who was the chief priest for Jupiter, right? Like Julius Caesar was famously Pontifex Maximus, and the title of Imperator became associated with Pontifex Maximus. So it wasn't always, I don't think every emperor was technically that. Like I think he might like occasionally they might have handed it out to somebody, but for all intents and purposes, the emperor of Rome was kind of like the Pope too. Well, I mean like the pagan Pope, right?
But I thought weren't they not all deified?
I don't know that all of them were. In fact, some of them were deified and got undeified. Oh. Like I think it was either maybe Caligula or Commodus or one of the ones everybody's heard of that was just like a psychopath that deified himself during his life, and then the second he dropped dead, they like rescinded his deification.
Gotcha. Yeah. I read a thing or I saw a video. I think I sent it to you about the Japanese from Chinese culture. They have a similar belief in that people through heroic action or their actions in life, they would join this pantheon of gods. Whatever it was. Yeah. They won a lot of battles and they did this, and so they
Or the emperor himself. Well, I think that was actually like a 19th century thing where the emperor became a living god, but I might be wrong about that too.
But that's why, like in Japanese, where they will associate some things from Western culture, why they associate a lot of Nordic type things is that it has a similar, one can ascend to godhood through battle or stuff on earth.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you see, it all goes back to the Greek stuff, right? Because the Greeks' idea of an afterlife was pretty grim. And, if you read your Homer, the only way to immortality was through like great acts that you did while you were alive.
Yeah.
That people would continue to remember you, and that was the only way. Other than that, the best thing you could hope for were the Elysian Fields, and I can't remember the criteria into getting to those, but it was just like it was nicer than what was the other place. But eventually, everybody would drink from the waters of forgetfulness. I'm not making this up. This is this is the mythology stuff. But
I think it's just oddball, though. You have hundreds of years between Julius Caesar, the first emperor of Rome, where they have their whole society is built on various temples in which they would give sacrifices, and there was all these priests
the whole
things
culture,
that they would do,
right?
And a guy who could have made himself a god and thought of himself as such said, we gotta adopt this monotheistic peasant religion from people that we subjugated.
It's totally fascinating. It's totally fascinating. Constantine is
and not only people that they subjugated, but people. I'm sure they didn't know it, but people for thousands of years prior had been in various states of enslavement. And the Jews, I'm saying, have been enslaved by every other
and it wasn't
empire before the Romans.
And it wasn't that long before Constantine that Hadrian threw the Jews out of Jerusalem and started the diaspora. I think the time frame between Julius Caesar and Constantine is about 250 years or so.
All right.
And so in that time, you have it being, and because we're so familiar with the Bible, we think of it as like, Nero is when a lot of like the stories in the Bible about people getting eaten by lions is happening, right? But Christianity wasn't in a vacuum. It wasn't you were either in the cult of Jupiter or you were a Christian. There were like a bazillion other things going on at the same time. Like you can kind of think of Christianity at that time anyway as like some weird internet religion you stumble across on the internet.
I think it was odd, but very specifically through most of the ancient world, even pre the Roman Empire, because it was a monotheistic religion.
Because it was monotheistic, because there weren't all these, and it also implies like, what do you mean when you say a god? Right?
Right.
Because if you think about like the stories of Zeus, who is Jupiter, they're basically, it's almost like reading about superheroes. Like they have extraordinary abilities, but they're basically just dudes.
I think that's what was not the deciding factor, but the main difference is that you could say, well, people can become gods, and you have these gods like Zeus who had all these foibles and all these things that they did.
But you have to appease him because he could, unquestionably, there's nothing you can do about him, right? It's almost like a matriculation, not matriculation, but it's almost like a condensement of how society works. It's like, okay, look, King blah, blah, blah over there, he is an asshole. But God, if you say anything to him, what's he going to do? He's going to chop your head off. If you he's got all the stuff, and he's kind of funny, but and so the only thing you can do if you want to survive is to do what the toughest guy in the room says to do. The difference is when you bring in like a philosophy that comes from Christianity, is that none of that matters. All human beings are equal. Every single one, whether you are the emperor or whether you're the slave in the lowest pit. And if you follow the rules in the correct way, then you have not only a pathway to something remarkable and wonderful, but these people who are horrible are going to get what's coming to them. And other than some very specific instances within like the Greek mythology is what you might as well use because that's what the Romans used, like some very specific ones like Tantalus and Sisyphus. For most people, it was the same kind of lot. Like the same thing about the Nordic religions, right? Like most people were going to hell. Like if you didn't die with an axe in your face, you were going to hell. It was hell or Valhalla. And Valhalla is where you went if you died in battle. Mm-hmm. And so for like a regular person, there was nothing hopeful in terms of an afterlife that existed. What Christianity introduced was a hope for not just the people who did great, not just the Herculeses, right? But also for anybody.
I think the Jews didn't.
Which
believe
is why
that.
it was.
But the Jews didn't believe
the
that.
The Jews are different. Absolutely. But the Jews invented the whole concept of monotheism. So give them some credit.
Well, yeah, give them all the credit.
Or actually, I was thinking about this the other day. Are you familiar with Zoroastrianism?
But I want to back up for 1 second because I think some of it is that I think you either misunderstand or misremember. I think a lot of the. Most of the Old Testament, even the Old Testament is not, you should believe this because you'll have some hope that bad things will happen.
No, the Old Testament is specific to the Jewish people.
Well, that's not really true. It's specific.
Unless I'm wrong, Judaism is not a religion that's actively trying to get new people involved.
But it's not specific to the Jews, otherwise they wouldn't include it in the Bible.
Oh, no. Jewish law is an extension of what Jesus brought. But the Jewish people themselves, like an Orthodox Jew, is not going to come knocking on your door and saying, hey, why don't you come over here and join my team? It's not evangelical. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay, I would agree with that. But what I'm saying is that I think even in the Old Testament, They didn't believe what they believed because they thought that other people might get some divine retribution, and that they can say, "Ha ha, I'm believing this, and you're going to get." What
I
you
think
deserve."
that's 100% one of the reasons people converted. Is to 100%.
I don't think
if
it
you're a
is.
slave living in like in Syria under the Roman occupation, right, and everything sucks.
But that's not what's written in the Old Testament mostly. I mean, most of the pain in the Old Testament that's
Well, they didn't convert to Judaism; they converted to Christianity.
But I'm saying a lot of the pain in the Old Testament is because the Jews turned away from God. If you read about it, like if you read Jeremiah, it's because the Jews had turned away from God. That's why they became enslaved again. A lot of those issues is that the Jews are doing things they ought not to do. They should turn back to the true God.
Well, yeah,
it's not.
I mean, yeah, but there's also Job where it can also happen just because God feels like it.
That's not really what even Job is about.
I mean, I was being a little bit glib, but yeah, I'm
I mean,
very
Job.
familiar with Job.
The takeaway from Job is that Job was a very good Israelite and a very good Jew.
Yes,
and
God and the devil had a bet.
No, and God.
It begins with God and the devil having a bet.
But they don't bet. They don't wager anything. They don't actually.
Well,
wager.
I mean, it's like I bet. Okay, it's the equivalent of this. I bet I can make him jump over that fence. Bet you can't. That is the book of Job.
Well, he says, if you take your hand off of Job, I'll make him curse your God. And he never does.
And he says, I bet you can't.
But he never does. He doesn't say, I bet you can't.
All right, let me rephrase. I bet if you take your hand off of Job, I can make him curse you. Bet you can't.
But God was right.
Yeah, he won the bet, 100%. Yeah, and that's the takeaway.
The takeaway, if you read...
The takeaway is stay true to God no matter what happens to you. Obey the way that you have been told no matter what happens to you, because it's
the actual main takeaway from Job, if you read it, I think, theologically, and the way that it's taught, is that Job suffered all these things, and he prayed to God all the time, because Job was destitute, he was sick, his kids died, his wife died. But Job was redeemed when he stopped thinking about the things that were inflicted on him in the world, and he prayed for other people. That's kind of the takeaway, is that, and to turn away from your inward things, that my life is terrible, God, you should deliver me from these things, is that he had his friends that came to him and said, look at all the stuff that's happened to you. You should curse God.
Yeah.
I think is what they say.
There's some of that in there, 100%.
I think it's his two friends come to him, and I might be wrong, but they say, look at all these things. Why don't you curse God? And they leave, and Job prays and says, God, they need you because they're asking me to curse God. And at that time, God says, listen, I've given Job every single chance to curse me. And not only did he not curse me, he's asked me not only to help him, he's asked me to help his friends who are way, way, way better off than him.
And I think, and look, and in the end of it, Job,
I
get it. Yeah, absolutely. But here's what, it's kind of the same thing with all those stories that I start thinking about, is like, why did all of his children and his wife have to get killed to make that point?
I don't know. Maybe.
Because they were there. They were there too. It is really, really interesting because Kierkegaard was famously, he famously created the notion of Christian existentialism. In fact, I think Kierkegaard coined the term existentialism, and it was kind of about wrestling, not necessarily with Job, but about about Abraham and Isaac, right? Why is God pulling this hilarious prank on Abraham? To see if he'll do it? And where Kierkegaard took away from it is trying to find rationality within God is a fool's game, and your specific relationship with him, subjective to you, is the only one that makes sense.
There's probably a lot of truth in that.
Well, a lot of people like Kierkegaard.
I think it makes the broader point, which is the connecting tissue between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and why we have the Old Testament and the New Testament. I could be wrong, but why I think and why a lot of people that I listen to or read say why you still have the Old Testament in the New Testament, why it's important, is that you had the vast portion of the Old Testament in the first 5 books of the Bible that were written by Moses was the story of the creation, which we know, and the rise of the Jewish people in Genesis, their enslavement, and then you have the rules of how to be a Jew.
Yeah.
It's basically the first 5 books of the Bible.
That's right.
And
then the prophets.
It became impossible, and it is impossible, to do all the things that you can do. So you had moral law in the 10 Commandments, right, that God gave Moses. And then you had all the theocratic, the laws of their country, which are in, I guess, Leviticus.
And Deuteronomy.
That are all the rules that they had to follow.
That's all the fun throw your wife on a roof stuff.
And that's why, or you can't cut your hair and you have to have your hair such a way and white. But a lot of that was for Jews to be made apart from these polytheistic religions, and so people would know that you're a follower of the Hebrew God, of Yahweh.
Get circumcised so that...
And that the connecting point is that even that's what they, Jesus was one of the things the Pharisees said to him is he said, I haven't come to destroy the law.
That's what I was about to bring
to
that.
Fulfill it.
Exactly, because I think that's why the Old Testament is in there.
That he, he says, don't you know that what does he say? That what the prophets wrote has got to come true, that the keystone will be the keystone will be I will be the keystone that the builders rejected, the keystone of the new temple to be built, that the builders rejected. And that's not the only reason it's still there, but that's what draws the connection between the Old Testament and Jesus the Messiah. That's why you have that in there, to show that it's the fulfillment of the promise that God made to the Jews. That's why you have them put together.
Yeah. But from a historical geopolitical standpoint, it is completely fascinating, because as important as the people actually lived in the Bible are, I would still argue that one of the most important human beings that ever lived in terms of Christianity is Constantine.
I mean, I guess but to me, it's.
Well, if you say otherwise, then you have to make the argument somehow that it would have happened anyway. Like, I think Constantine is one of these rare instances where it was literally like a guy who changed the world, like a guy who made a decision and changed the world.
Maybe. I think it has to be big enough for him to get to him. That's my point.
Oh, that's true too.
You have
that's
a monotheistic religion of a subjected peoples that is
philosophically diametrically opposed to
him,
the
that
one.
Spread like wildfire through the southern portion of his
and
empire.
You got to remember, I can't remember the guy's name or the emperor's name, but I think it was 1 or 2 removed from Constantine that the biggest persecution of I don't know why we don't talk about him in the Western Christian tradition so much. Good Lord, I feel like an idiot. I can't remember his name, but he murdered the crap out of it. Like, Christianity was illegal in the Roman Empire. And if you did not do the sacrifices of the gods, then your ass was grass.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, because it was a subversive religion from a lot of those. But
for whatever reason, Constantine said, I'm not living in Rome anymore. I'm going over here to Turkey, y'all, and founded the part of the empire that lasted 1,000 years after the fall of the West, and established the religion that would spiritually and politically control that part of the world to this minute right here we're sitting.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So, good job, Constantine.
Yeah.
You achieved all your dreams, goals, and ambitions. And by the way, I don't mean to come across as disrespectful. I think we've discussed before, I'm not a super religious guy.
I don't think you're
but
disrespectful.
I am very fascinated with it. And I feel like if I do have any disrespect, or I'm being a little bit silly, please understand I've done a little bit of homework. I have read this stuff and am deeply, deeply interested in it.
I don't think you're being disrespectful.
One of my favorite human beings I ever got to know was a rabbi here in Columbus, and there was a time when he was my solo spiritual advisor. Seth Oppenheimer, he's a math teacher.
I wonder, what he would say. I mean, I guess they're still waiting on their Messiah.
Yeah.
Or do they believe it? See, I think there's a lot of, I could be wrong, but I think there's a lot of Jews, because I think
I think that's the case.
I think the passages that inform the rise of the Jewish Messiah are in Isaiah. I could be wrong about that, but I think they are.
He comes from David, which is why they make a big deal.
Right.
I mean, I don't mean they make a big deal, but there's a lot of attention in the Gospels paid to Mary's patronage to show that she's a descendant of David.
And I just wonder, I don't know if all of them, because I don't think they do. I don't think all the Jews believe that there is a Messiah. And I don't think they all believe. I mean, it's like any other religion. I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of Jewish practice. I mean, Reformed Jews, conservative Jews, Orthodox Jews. I just wonder what is the impetus for one believing that A, we should wait, we're still waiting, or B, we don't believe. Believe that one's coming at all.
Here's the way I think about it, which is that
because I don't think I don't think the Messiah correlates in the Jewish religion to like the end of the world. I don't think it does.
As I mentioned before, I went to a boarding school, and my across the hallway neighbor was a guy named David, and David was a Jewish guy, and I remember Thanksgiving happened, and we all come back, and we all these little mini fridges in our room. And me and my roommate walk in our room, and we didn't leave the doors locked because, who cares? We all went in everybody's room anyway. And the lights are out, and I turn the lights on, and David is sitting in a chair next to the refrigerator with a Ziploc bag full of ham shoved in his mouth. And he just looks up at us, and he says, "Don't tell my mom." He keeps eating. Oh, David K., I hope you're doing good, buddy.
Yeah, they're not supposed to eat cloven hoof animals.
They're not supposed to eat a lot of things.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Of course I do. Yeah, I totally understand. No, I don't either, and that's just because I'm ignorant of those things. Right. And I'm sure if we got a rabbi in here, they could explain it to us.
We should ask him to come on there and see if
he's in Augusta, Georgia right now, so that might be difficult. But if he ever comes, I'll reach out to him and ask if he wants to come do it.
I'd like to see what he says.
He's a lovely human being.
I just think it's odd. That's what, you go from.
Well, but you're also doing it within the context of what you know. Like Jesus has fulfilled the messianic role in terms of Christianity by living and dying and resurrecting. And so I think, and maybe, and it might be the case that there's something similar within like the Jewish Messiah. There's some sort of specific role like that they're supposed to fulfill, when I don't know that that's the case. Again, we're talking from utter ignorance.
But I think there's some portion of, I think there's something that I said previously, which is that certainly then those ancient Jews who believed in a Messiah, which wasn't all of them, believed that whatever was this reign of peace which was going to come with the last king of Israel.
I think what it was they were expecting someone to, because I think everything's contextual within the time that you live, and you can only understand things through the scope of the time that you live because you can't see in the future, that it was about kicking out the occupiers.
Well, that's a lot of what they thought, is that they would be delivered.
Right. And that means specifically, not in this grand post-death kind of experience, but in a literal, get these, olive-eating sons of bitches out of here.
But they were delivered eventually by Constantine.
No, they'd already been cast out of Israel by Hadrian.
But I'm saying the persecution, I guess, of
not of Jewish people.
Well, that's true. But if they'd have believed in it.